Camera on. Good morning. It's 9:30 by my time, please.
Yeah, I can do that.
So we're calling the meeting to order, and I'm going to establish a quorum here. We have present Director John Holt, Treasurer Debbie Isaacs, myself, Dan Sullivan, Vice President Bill Herman, and Secretary Maria Perkins, along with our Executive Secretary Christina Rodriguez and our Executive Officer Richard Lawrence. So we do have a quorum. If we can now have the invocation, Katie Brown has volunteered to do it, if you don't mind, Katie.
Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come together this morning in this beautiful place that we live. We ask that you guide our conversations, that you open our hearts and our minds, that we might clearly see what you would have us do. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
The pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have the consent agenda next, and is there anything that any director would like to have removed from that consent agenda? Okay. Hearing nothing, I assume that we can keep it in there. And the first order of business would be the Secretary's report.
Good morning. So I received a letter from a member in good standing that I'm going to read aloud. Give me just a second. I'll pull it up. It's from Charles Kirby. It says, Mrs. Perkins, as a resident of the fort, I have noticed a large decrease in the axis deer population in Fort Clark Springs. We are interested in knowing if there are ongoing efforts outside of hunting managed by Fort Clark Springs to remove axis deer from the community. As constituents, we would like to know if this is being managed by or with the Texas Parks and Wildlife authorities, and what methods, if any, are being utilized to decrease the numbers. Additionally, we would like to know if Fort Clark Springs is profiting off any of the relocation efforts of these animals, and if the hunting program is generating twice the revenue as it did last year due to the 100% increase in hunting fees in 2018-2019. Any information that could be made public and transparent on these topics is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Charles Kirby. I did ask this question to Mr. Lawrence yesterday as part of this. I had not received this email when I asked, and to answer that question, I was told that deer are not being removed from the fort outside of normal hunting.
No, that's not correct.
Oh, so they're not correct. So I'll just divert it to you.
How about if you allow me to give a full report at our next meeting of all the tests?
So we'll have a full report on all of that at the next meeting. I don't know if Mr. Kirby is here, but please relay that to him. The ballots were mailed out to members on Friday, February 15th. There are instructions for voting. Please be sure to read them if you want your vote to count. I posted on my Facebook page what the ballot looks like, along with the rules for how to vote. If you have more than one ballot to send back, they have to be in individual envelopes, but there's something later that I'm going to discuss in my report that talks about that. Members do have to sign each ballot, and return postage is required. It is not provided. And ballots must be received by March 15th in order to count. I received a written request from a member asking for replacement ballots to be issued. I have not researched the matter yet, but I plan to today. I'm also expecting at least 2 more similar requests. I would like to remind members that according to the bylaws, if a member does not receive part or all of their allotted ballots, the member may submit in writing to the Secretary of the Board of Directors for a replacement request. Regarding the election, an issue arose over the weekend regarding the verbiage missing from the ballots and information missing from the pamphlets. I'm going to address the pamphlet first. A candidate indicated that their bio was not published in full on the pamphlet. Yesterday, the election committee, election monitor, myself, and the executive officer met to thoroughly discuss the sequence of events leading to the issue with a candidate biography pamphlet that was raised over the weekend. After thoroughly reviewing all facets of the issue, the blame does not rest in one area. Several factors, from candidate biography submission to pamphlet proofreading procedures, contributed to the ballots being published as they were. Not all biographies were complete, and this was not intentionally done. The bylaws outline the big picture of how the elections are to take place, but do not describe in detail how to execute an election. Although there is no requirement or legal obligation to mail biographies, publishing biographies is a common practice and courtesy that has been extended to all candidates when mailing out ballots, so our members have personal information relating to the candidates to use when casting their vote. We want to make this right and weighed several options. Mailing new pamphlets is a process that would take several days to prepare, as well as approximately $1,100 to execute. The most expeditious and cost-effective way to fairly correct this unintentional error is to send a member-wide dispatch with the candidate biography information as it was originally submitted, with their candidate data sheet. This will be accomplished as soon as possible. The election committee chair and myself have reviewed the email that is projected to be emailed to membership and have provided our feedback for corrections. We expect that email will be sent out today. Additionally, specific verbiage addressing members with multiple lots was not on the ballot. The bylaws state that ballots must be returned only 1 ballot per envelope. Because it is not on the ballot, and there is no reference on the ballot to refer to the bylaws for further guidance on the election procedures, the election committee agreed that the best course of action for this election is to authorize the auditor to accept multiple ballots sent in the original return envelope. So I would like to ask the board to entertain in new business voting on this item, as it is an issue addressed by the bylaws that is in confliction with what we published to our members. As a group, several lessons were learned and they've been identified and will be used to make the process better for the next election. We plan to prepare continuity for election procedures, identifying these lessons learned to prevent these issues from occurring again in the future. And during the election committee report, the election committee chair will also be talking more about this in length. That is my report.
Thank you. Maybe this would be an appropriate time right now to do the special motion to approve accepting multiple ballots, and as long as all other requirements are met.
If it's all the same, could we do it in new business?
Under new business?
Because it's not in our consent agenda.
Okay. All right, fine. Thank you. Next, the treasurer's report. Deborah?
Hello. At this time, all I've got is the bank balances. We've had some issues up here with the accounting department. I do have one question though before I start. Down here on the restricted fund total includes historic preservation balance of 18,745. I thought last month that was 42,000 something. I don't know where this is coming from.
I got this report about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
So,
So when,
we
I'm not
haven't
even
ta-
going to read that part of it because
Yeah.
this is not correct on the
he and I have not
preservation
even
funds.
talked about this. So.
Okay, just wanted everybody to know that. Don't freak out. I got this about 4 minutes ago. On our Texas Community Bank General Fund, checking $46,768,059. Credit card account, $60,881.84. Money market account, $2,668.73. The flag account, $1,364.02, for a total at the Texas Community Texas Community Bank for $111,683.18. Also in the Texas Community Bank, there's $24,999.51 in a restricted fund at the Texas Community Bank also. The Bank and Trust General Fund, $48,475.31. Payroll account, $8,724.85. For a total of $57,200.16. For a total of $168,883.34 in both bank accounts. The Bank and Trust Restricted Fund, $384,187.21. The Los Morris Corporation account is a negative $1,269.24. And then we have a hail damage account with $24,166.10 for a grand total of $600,966.92.
Can I ask a question or two, Ms. Isaacs?
Sure, if I can help.
This hail damage escrow, is that just money that's in savings in case we have other issues with our roofs?
It was what was left over from the hailstorm in 2016.
Well, yeah, so is that earmarked for like,
It is in a separate
The intent of the previous board was to just earmark that for future hailstorms or other weather damaged storms in the event that, for example, that we had, what do you call it, an out-of-pocket expense.
okay, so then it would come from this account.
It was earmarked, but again, this board could do whatever it wants with that, but that was the intent, I think.
Okay, and then the other question I have is I understand that we've had some personnel changes, but is there a reason why we don't have a listing of what we've spent this month?
Yes, and I'll address that in just a minute.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Richard, I think we can move right to the,
Well, yeah, and that was going to be the first topic in answering Maria's question, Ms. Perkins' question. As you all know, that the comptroller resigned a few weeks ago, and as a result of that, the board authorized me to engage the Susan B. Newsom and Associates CPA firm, which we have done, and Mr. Randy Galloway has again returned and is going to, and has actually picked up the ball, and he's working very hard to produce financials for us. But it came at a time when he was also approaching the tax season, and so he's tried to give us what time he can. He just hasn't been able to devote full time to us, not his only client. So even this morning, he was working very diligently to try to get some reports to us, but it just didn't happen. And so hopefully in the very near future, we're going to have some financials that we can rely upon. Speaking of hail damage, and yesterday afternoon, as a matter of fact, the insurance adjuster sent to me page plus report on all of the hail damage here from that December 26th hailstorm that we had. The result of which is, I was not able to read it, but there's a number of our roofs that are going to have to be replaced. So much of what we experienced over the last couple of years, we're going to be experiencing again with the replacement of roofs. Fortunately, it'll be minimal cost to the fort and possibly no cost at all, but we'll see how that turns out. There's a duck in here somewhere. And a word about the motel doors. Mr. Hope has given some great guidance and help with the installation of one of the doors. But then as soon as we did that, we had 2 retreats lined up for the motel, full bookage. And we decided to put it on hold until after those retreats. We didn't want to take doors off and then possibly couldn't get them back on and not be able to use those rooms. So I hope that perhaps next week we can begin with the installation of the doors. I will tell you this, it will go very slowly. It's a difficult process, and we're having our own staff to do it. A word about common property assessments. We have had some folks asking us about the common property assessment. I need to point out that Fort Clark Springs Association is not a taxing authority. It cannot levy a tax. Fort Clark Springs levies an assessment. It is a common property assessment, and the collection of which is then used for the payment of taxes, yes, but it is not a tax in itself. And that assessment, common property assessment, is authorized by the declarations, it's authorized by the membership, and then it is levied by the board. So it is not accurate to call it a tax per se. It is a levy, and in order to change that in any way, would have to go to a vote of the full membership. Finally, I want to recognize someone who has stepped up to volunteer in a very special way, and that's Ms. Paula Diller. Ms. Diller has volunteered to do a computer search for the 1,300 plus inactive memberships that we have. That's going to be highly valuable to us at some point if we're able to reach out and contact these people who are on our inactive list. We may be able to benefit from that, and I appreciate Ms. Diller for doing that. It's a gargantuan task.
Yeah.
And so it's been years. No one has done anything with it. So I appreciate that. That's all I have.
May I make a comment? This will not be done overnight.
No. Oh, come on, next week?
There's 1,300 and some. I have
Yeah.
found, I've gone through about 80, 85 names so far. And I believe me, I'm not spending all my free time doing this.
Oh, come on. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
So I do have a couple of questions if I'm able to ask. Okay. So with regard to the finances, do we have anybody else on our staff that works with money? Like computing what we spend and providing information to the Newsom company?
Well, of course we do. We have a couple of employees who are in the accounts receivable and the bill payment and the things of that sort, but developing reports such as the ones that we need, that's not their forte.
Okay, so they don't have the ability to click print to have all the
It's not as
expenses?
easy as click print, no
Okay.
ma'am.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know anything about what they do on that
Yeah.
side, so that's why I'm asking the question.
We really need an accountant to be able to do that
Okay.
and to do it accurately.
And then with regard to the roofing, how does that come into play with the work that was previously done by the other roofing company when we had the other hailstorm? Does that void warranties or?
Yeah, that's why I said that in all probability, there would be very little, if any, cost at all because these roofs are under warranty. My understanding is that it should not really cost us anything, but I hate to say that until I know for sure.
Okay, yeah, I'd be curious how that, because I know that the warranty is for the workmanship. It's not necessarily for Mother Nature. So I'd be curious how that comes into play, if you don't mind following up with that.
Okay.
With regard to the common property assessment, I'm going to go ahead and say a blanket statement. Please silence all your phones. And also, please do not talk. It's really disrespectful to us up here. With regard to the common property assessment, that rationale is contrary to Texas law. Texas law says that if a veteran is 100% disabled, service-connected disability, they don't pay any tax at all on property. So I don't know how our declarations would trump what the law says. And I know it's going to start a big controversy, but I'm just throwing it out there, and I'd like to see us either do more research on it, get some legal advice maybe on it. But the Texas law that I read, and that was provided to me from a lawyer, is contrary to what our declarations say. So I'm just throwing that out there, that I'd like to see us get some more definitive explanation for it.
We can do that, and in fact, you recall that we're going to have the attorneys look at all of our documents, and that may be one of them.
Well, I'd like for us to highlight that as, hey, please talk to us about this, because that's a really big deal. If you're 100% service-connected disabled.
But until there's a ruling of some sort on that, I can't change it. I can't.
No, I understand that. And then thank you, Ms. Diller, for volunteering to do that. I do have a question, though, about privacy information and a concern of what the process is when members do volunteer to do that. Are they signing? I know we're going to have questions about it. So do we have confidentiality agreements in place? And
we do have confidentiality agreements, but I must say I'm not sure that I asked Ms. Diller to do that. Okay, we will. We will.
Thank you.
I mean, what I'm doing is nothing more than names and addresses.
Name and address.
It's not like I'm into any of the files.
Oh, I'm not saying you are.
Information.
I'm not saying that you are, but again, if we have people volunteering here, we should have.
The information that she has is the same information that she could get from the CAD.
Okay.
Also, I was informed by several people that the disabled veterans exemption and taxes on property taxes is on their homestead only and not on anything else. All right, we now move to committee, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Committee reports. Airport.
I have the airport report. We had 2 pilots visit this month. One is a winter Texan who has the desire to move to Fort Clark Springs, and the other was visiting a member in good standing. Excuse me. April 27th from 1 to 3 is our next open house. This is for members to see what we do on the airfield and will be in conjunction with our fly-in. Excuse me. Airport maintenance continues, and in the next couple of weeks, mowing will pick up. We want to remind everyone that the airport has 2 uncontrolled active runways, meaning we have aircraft operating on the airfield without a control tower, and unless you have a radio, you will not know if an aircraft is in operation. If you see a plane taking off or landing, it is okay to stop and watch, but you cannot cross fence lines to walk onto the airfield. You also cannot park on private property to watch the planes without permission from the owner. That is very dangerous, and if you or a child gets hurt, it could be fatal to you, the pilot, and passengers in the plane. The fort and pilot are not liable. The airport committee will be securing the perimeter as required.
Okay, thank you. Architectural. Cultural Committee.
Good morning. Pretty quick here this morning. We had 3 meetings in January. We issued 5 permits and 3 extensions or modifications. That's it.
Thank you, Joel. Election Committee, Sandra.
Maria stole all my thunder.
I do that.
Hasn't this been fun?
It's been an experience, let's put it this way. First of all, I would like to thank those 13 out of 14 assistants that showed up on Thursday morning to stuff ballots. And if any of them are here, please stand up. These people deserve all the credit in the world. And then I'd like to thank the election committee because they worked their butts off trying to get everything 100%. I know I was expecting a miracle. I don't think there's been an election yet that everything's gone 100% correct. But I'd like the people in the committee to also stand up because they were indispensable. And Dennis Stephenson's the other one. Apparently he's not here. And then I'd like to thank Board Secretary Maria Perkins for her help as the election monitor and for doing a little bit of extra stuff for us as needed. So, extremely helpful. I also want to thank Richard for administration and assistance in printing ballots, working with the post office to set up the first-class bulk permit, instructions, obtaining mailing trays, troubleshooting post office problems. Again, indispensable. And I want to thank Christina, who, when we found out that the post office had not received the cardboard sleeves that we were supposed to get to place our trays in, dropped everything, jumped in her car, drove to Del Rio, and picked up 6 cardboard sleeves for us, hurried back, but we couldn't make the post office's deadline date of 1 o'clock. So, anyway, just to give you a little bit of information on how this worked, we set some sort of record because everybody showed up and had the ballots stuffed in the envelopes by 10:30. We also had to sort the envelopes by 3 different zip code categories, put them in the trays, and had to weigh them. It's unfortunate we have no control over the post office's operations. And unfortunately, they would not accept our ballots without the sleeves. So we had to wait till Christina got back at 5 minutes after 1. So what we did is we placed the trays in the sleeves. We put the trays and the unlabeled ballots into the security chief's office for the night where they were locked up. We also did this Wednesday night after we had placed the labels on the ballots. So they were locked and secured. At 10:15 the next morning, the committee and Richard met, and Maria met us at the post office, and we delivered the trays to the post office and turned them over to their custody and control by 10:35 on Friday morning. And please recall that although we wanted to get them out on Thursday, sometimes things happen beyond our control. This was beyond our control. We did allow for, in the target date sheet that we sent around to all of the candidates, board members, and put it out in the public, we did allow for unknown circumstances to delay the mailing to Friday. And we had promised to make sure they were in there by noon, and they were in there by 10:35. Unfortunately, there was some rather rude and nasty chatter on Facebook concerning the reason for not mailing the ballots on Thursday. The members involved blamed the board and administration for bad management, and that was not the case. The sleeves weren't delivered on time. Richard had been working with the local post office for more than a month to set the procedure up for changing to first-class bulk mail permit. Neither the board, which was not involved in any way in the election procedures, the board secretary, Richard Lawrence, the election committee, nor the volunteers were responsible for post office's own issues. And that's like I said, and Christina dropped everything to try to get
those sleeves that we needed. Every year, it seems that somebody doesn't get their ballots. I got mine on Monday after taking them over there on Friday. But those were 78832s, and that was one of the zip code categories that we had to sort to. So they will probably come out sooner. If you do not get yours within 7 to 10 days, then I would suggest that maybe there's a problem with the post office. Our bylaws provide 4 replacement ballots. This is something that we added new to the bylaws. And it reads, and I'm just going to put it into the video record. If a member does not receive part or all of their allotted ballots, the member may submit in writing to the Secretary of the Board of Directors a replacement request. The Secretary will oversee the replacement ballot issuing process and will furnish a hand receipt to document how many replacement ballots were issued and to whom. The auditing firm will validate the ballots received, and if a member has sent more than the allotted ballots allowed, all of the ballots will be deemed invalid. So if you get to a point where you don't think you've received all of them, you got one and you should have gotten 6, make sure that you handle this in writing immediately and do not delay. Okay. The second issue was discussed already by Maria, and that was the pamphlets. And frankly, we did not proof them as we should. We looked for typos and phrasing, but did not really check for content to make sure that all of it was there. It was not intentional. It's just one of those things that happens when you type a pamphlet. The final note on this particular issue is we'd made no additions to what the candidates gave us. Simply a few sentences were actually left off of the biography. But we learned from that, and I will be making a binder covering all of the procedures for the election, including what problems to look out for and some of the issues that came up while we were there, so that the next election in 2021 will have some guidelines. And then they will, of course, add their own feedback to it as well. And I did want to point out on the ballot that number 4, unfortunately, when you're dealing with all of this information and you're familiar with it, things are clearer to you than they may be to someone who doesn't do it every day. And number 4 on the ballot simply said that the ballot was to go into the envelope provided. Well, we all thought that that was clear, that if you got 6 ballots and 6 envelopes, then the 6 ballots should each go in their own envelope. But Maria pointed out to us that from a viewpoint of someone who doesn't deal with this or has never dealt with it before in the past, that was not clear. It wasn't so much that it was missing as that it was not communicated very well. So that is why we're asking the board to approve a waiver on that point of or that section of the bylaws for this. Other than that, again, I wanted to thank you. Oh, I did have one other thing, and I think Maria pointed it out, but I want to also stress it, is that these pamphlets are printed out as a courtesy to the members that will be voting. They're not printed to the benefit of the candidate. The candidate is in charge of his own or her own campaign. The pamphlets are not to be considered a campaign product. They're simply to inform the members something about the people, the names that are on the ballot. Okay, and I think that that may have been misunderstood by a couple of our candidates. So I just wanted to let everybody know that those pamphlets are for the members' benefit, not to the candidates' benefit. And if at some point in the future that the members do not feel that the pamphlets are helpful to them, we will probably, quit putting them in there with the ballot. But for now, members seem to like them, so we'll recommend that they keep doing it in the future. So again, thank you to everybody, board, Maria, Christina, driver from hell, Richard, and all of the helpers. We really appreciate everything that you have done. Thank you.
I would like to thank Sandy and Maria and the entire election committee and all the volunteers for a lot of hard work and a lot of time and effort to pull this off. Mr. Griswold, we really should wait to our regular comment period, unless you'd have something critical right now.
Well, it's just a question that I would think she probably could answer better than anyone else. Do we have an amount of ballots we sent? How many ballots did we send out?
There are 1,720 property owner ballots.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the Equine Committee.
No report for the Equine Committee.
No report at this time. The Golf Committee. Mrs. Brown.
Good morning. I am not on the golf committee, but I did volunteer to bring the reports because everybody on the golf committee is employed and so is not able to make the meetings. So, the meeting of February 6th, David Mann, who is the president of the golf committee, called the regular meeting of the Fort Clark Springs Association Golf Committee to order at 5:15 p.m. on Wednesday, February 6, 2019 in the clubroom. Present were directors David Mann, Lou Green, Jacob Mann, Jesse Terrazas, Trent Brown, and the Fort Clark Springs Association Board Liaison, Deborah Isaacs. Also present were golf course manager Cash Letzinger and the men's club president Donnie Letzinger. Old business. Cash asked if the committee would be willing to pay $84 for the surfactant for the poison that was purchased last month, and for the poison, which cost $924.99 for a total of $1,008.99. Decision was not made. Secondly, Cash requested the golf committee ask the executive officer and the Fort Clark Springs Association board how much they would be willing to commit to the fairway mower that was demonstrated last fall. The golf committee is working with the men's club to secure donations and pledges, etc., and they've agreed to help with a donation. They need to know what the fort can do before soliciting donations or pledges for the balance. New business. The golf committee needs to ask permission to post the welcome golfer message on the marquee. 2, the golf committee will do the office work for a tournament on March 2nd, 2019, sponsored by the Sunset Funeral Home in Uvalde. Details will be forthcoming. 3, volunteers are needed and welcomed. The Los Morris tournament will be March 16th and 17th with a practice round on Friday the 15th. The tournament flyer, the entry blank, and the rules sheet have been mailed to clubs within 150 miles of Brackettville. A mail blast has been sent to all past players for whom we have email addresses. We have also sent cell phone messages to past players, as well as posting the tournament on our Facebook page, Fort Clark Bracket Golf. Office help for the entry office is being handled by Katie Brown. Meal servers and ticket takers are being handled by Katie Brown. Golf maintenance and volunteers are already addressing course issues such as tree trimming, raking of twigs, limbs, etc. They are also filling in the holes created by ground squirrels, ants, and the deer. Jesse Terrazas, who is also on the school board, will be working with the school for volunteers for spotters, servers, etc. for the tournament. The meeting was adjourned at 6:15 p.m. by David Mann, minutes submitted by Katie Brown. The meeting of February 13th, 2019, David Mann called the meeting to order with all 5 board members present, as well as the Fort Clark Board Liaison. They discussed the upcoming Los Morris tournament on March 15th to the 17th. They expect 120 plus golfers, many who are from out of town. They discussed the maintenance, especially around the greens for the tournament. The tournament raises money for high school scholarships. There was no new business. The meeting was adjourned by David Mann, minutes submitted by Katie Brown.
The golf course committee all did pay that $1,008
They
for
did.
that place. Yes, they did.
Great. Great. It's good that they help out with things that are needed on our golf course. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Katie. Preservation Committee.
I had a golf question, and this might be directed more to you, Miss Isaacs. But would the golf committee consider doing like a golf 101 for members who have never been on the golf course or played golf or done anything with golf? I fall into that category, but I hear a lot about the quality of our golf course and that it needs a lot of help. And I'm just asking, is that something that we could even ask for?
I think that it'd be a great idea to try to get people that's never golfed to come out and golf. Maybe we could just raise the fees a day just to get people out there, loan them clubs, play with somebody that knows how to play. Maybe we can stir up some interest with new members. I mean, if you've got your own golf cart, if you wanted a golf cart, you'd have to rent your golf cart. But I think something like that would be very instrumental in bringing in new people that might be interested in golf. We do the youth already, which that's coming up pretty soon also.
Oh, see, I didn't know that at all. So,
Yeah.
would you write my name down and just let me know what you guys decide? I'd go do it. And if any other board member wants to go watch me not golf very well,
We can just
I'm
get
open
the
to that.
men's club, the ladies club, and the golf committee, if Mr. Lawrence is okay with one day, 9 holes or something, trying to stir up new golfers.
Sound like a good idea.
I'll talk with everybody, the women's and men's league and golf committee then.
Okay, thank you.
Good, we'll leave it in your hands.
Katie Brown, did you take notes?
All right, we'll try again now. Preservation Committee.
The Historic Building Committee has nothing except the 3 action items that will be coming up here shortly.
It's in our packet. He's
Yeah.
got some stuff that they're wanting to get approved.
Yeah, I realize that. We have that under action items. Okay, nothing else?
There's nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Recycling.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
We're ready to ship probably in 2 weeks. And again, we're probably going to be in negative money because shipping costs $400 and we're not going to make that. Let's see, I make a plea for more aluminum cans, which gives us pretty good money, as well as office paper. I'm talking, and again, I guess I don't want to encourage people to drink beer, but we could use the aluminum cans. I'm talking to Rio Grande Electric for their shredded paper. So we'll see if we can get more office paper. So that's all.
You accept shredded paper?
Oh, I love it. That's office paper.
Okay.
As long as it's not shredded magazines, which for some reason people do, because once it's that slick magazine material, then that becomes mixed paper, which we get 0 for. And of course, that's what we have the most of is magazines, newspapers, catalogs. So all that's mixed paper and we get 0 money.
Thank you.
Do you work with the school still on the recycling? Because they have a lot of paper in
Yeah,
their
they
bins.
sure do. And we get that delivered every single week.
Okay.
Yeah, except we're having a little trouble because they're not separating the paper from construction paper or other stuff. So I spend a lot of time separating, and it's something that I have to communicate again with them. So
Okay.
anyway, but we appreciate it.
How are you doing on volunteers?
Oh, we're good. We're good.
Great.
Yeah, I think we're in good shape.
Thank
And
you.
yeah. So again, my thanks go to Joe Alaknis.
Okay, well, thank you, all the recycling people. Joe,
Yeah, we should.
He's one of the
stand up.
recycling people. I think he may have been recycled, I'm not sure. He, I understand, performed some magic over there.
Yeah.
Next is a community council report.
Community council has no activities planned until April. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. We now come to the portion where members can comment on the upcoming action items so they can give any input to the board before we vote on those items. And then I'll bring your attention, it also is a 15-minute member comment on various items at the end of the meeting that was restored last month as it was in the past. And so with that, are there any members that want to comment on the action items coming up? No? All right. Then we shall move to the first action item, and that is to consider the appointment of Mr. Steve Giblin to the Preservation Historical Building Repairs Committee. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to appoint Steve Giblin to the Preservation Committee.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Deborah Isaacs, second by John Hope. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Steve. You have another obligation on your hands. Thank you. Next action item is expenditure by the Preservation Committee to repair and installation of Seminole Hall windows at a cost of $5,712. The reason this is their own funds, it's money they have as a committee decided they want to spend to do this project. But some time ago, there was changes made where the board has oversight to make sure that it's something in line with what should be occurring. So it comes out of their money, their budget. Do I have a motion to approve that expenditure?
I'll make a motion to approve that expenditure.
I have a motion by Mr. Hope. Anyone second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have 2 seconds. Bill Herman and Maria Perkins. Any discussion?
I had a question. Is their preservation balance the $18,745?
That's the question that Debbie had raised during her report. That's not an accurate number.
There's 42,000 plus whatever last month would have brought in.
So do we know what the balance is?
42,000, 43
So
something.
43,000, okay. Because my concern was those two, on both of those line items, those two, it's about $15,000, and if this was really $18,000, then they would have no money.
No. They've got, at last month's meeting, they had 42,000 and something. Normally, it's about $1,500 a month. Yeah, depending on who pays their assessments, but normally it's about $1,500 to $1,800 a month.
Okay. And then the next question I had is, in the notes that we were given, it says that there was a 501c3 that was going to be used for the bills. What 501c3 is that?
Historical Society.
And is that the same as the Preservation Committee, or?
No.
That's committee to buy the paint and stuff, or
Right.
if they need
Tax-free.
to.
Well, I understand what that would do for you. I'm just asking, like, how that organization correlates
As
to
long as we
the
pay
committee.
for it in cash,
Yes.
we can do that.
So in cash, meaning you're going to withdraw that money and pay it physically in
just
cash?
for the paint and stuff. Not for everything, I don't believe, right? No. Like if we want to buy $50 worth of paint, we'll pay cash for the paint, take the receipt, bring it into Mr. Lawrence, explain what it's for, and then we get reimbursed.
If we can do it tax-free through the 501c3, well, then that's gonna save money to put into other projects.
Well, no, I understand that, but.
And if you can work with the 501c3, hopefully somebody that's really into historical might do a donation to do some of the work.
if we start working with the 501c3.
Okay.
Uh,
So in reference, oh, go ahead.
As a point of clarification, the total amount is $14,708.
Well, I rounded up 15 grand. That's what you round it up and that's what it is. But my question though with that 501c3, was that intended to use for the roofing company and for that other company as well? Or is that, you're just talking about, okay.
Small,
Okay, gotcha. That's all my questions.
I do want to make one note, though. The 5,712 is not for all of the windows. That was for a certain
Just the
amount.
top 13.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there are still more windows,
There's
and we've already done windows.
34 minus
Previous,
13
yes.
left to go.
All right, thank you. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Action item number 3 is expenditure by the Preservation Committee for replacement of the Dickman Hall balcony awning at a cost of $8,996. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept that.
Okay, we have a
$996.
motion by Mr. Holt to approve
Second.
expenditure, a second by Bill Herman. Is there any further discussion?
I have one question. Was this, I'm sorry, it's funny for some, but I have a question. Was this approved by the historic, whatever committee that was that needed to approve it in Texas, or is this the first step and then it gets approved by them?
First, we contacted the Texas Historical Commission to see if it was even feasible based on what the building looked like back in the 1940s. They gave their thumbs up, that's okay. They sent back, said they have 3 questions that need to be answered. As soon as you all approve it, then I will get back in contact with the THC again, answer those 3 questions, provide all the information that they need. And once they give us a thumbs up, which could be, I was told anywhere from 30 to 60 days, then we'll be able to actually start the project. Once we give them their 1/3 back, 1/3 of the balance up front, 1/3 of the money's up front.
The Texas
Thank you.
Commission gets 1/3 of the monies?
No.
Oh, the construct, okay, that makes sense, okay. Thank you.
But also, this is supposed to stop the water from leaking into the floor up there
That's
also.
right.
So that's the purpose of putting this whole awning out there.
We've been talking about this for
Year and a half.
year, hadn't we?
Yeah,
Zoning and what it's gonna do. and-
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it has been a year.
yeah.
All right, any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. The next action item is the resolution granting a variance for placement of personal property on the Unit 1 common property, and I'll just give a very brief explanation of what it is there. The residents of Unit 1 have formed like a neighborhood group, and they approached the board through a workshop that we had, and what they want to do is enhance their common property, and it will be available to any and all members of the fort, whether they live in Unit 1 or 27 or wherever. The type of items they're talking about were like outdoor patio tables, chairs, that type of thing, so that the property can be utilized easier and they can obtain more enjoyment. So that's it. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the resolution granting a variance to allow the placement of removable personal property on common property.
I second that motion.
Here we have a motion to approve it and a second. Questions, discussion?
What is going to be the process for anybody else now that wants to do this? Just so everybody knows what the next process is if 27 wants to do something like that on common property.
I would say the best guidance I can offer would be to use common sense. If it's something that's going to improve the property and make it more usable to all members, and not obstruct any members from using it, then I'd say it's my own personal opinion, that's a reasonable question. But I understand your point. You want, you
Well,
know,
because this only says Unit 1, so don't want everybody to go out here and just start putting stuff on all the common property without proper approval. I guess
Correct.
is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely.
What will be the process?
I'm concerned with the precedents that we're setting. Because what this is telling me is that if I think it's reasonable to have a swing set put right in the middle of the track, I could just go do it because I think it'd be good and everybody else can use it. But somebody who might use that area to play soccer, per se, may conflict that. So I think this is setting a very interesting precedent for what we can do on common property when we're precluded from doing that in our own documents anyway.
Well, first of all, there were specific items in the request that were approved by or they weren't approved, but are being asked to be approved. So
Exactly.
it isn't like you can just decide you want to put out anything that you want and throw it out there.
That's
It's things that
exactly
make
right.
sense.
They came to us, they presented it to us, they showed us what they wanted to do, and now they're going through the proper motion to get it approved, and anybody else that wants to do something, any other unit is gonna have to do the same thing.
So-
They're gonna have to follow the same steps.
So we are going to allow members to go to common property, and as long as they decide that they want to present it to the board, then we're just going to start approving
No.
that.
Who's gonna, that's ridiculous. You gonna allow somebody to put a freight train out there in front of something?
I don't know, is it going to enhance
No.
the use? I don't know.
Picnic tables.
So that leads me to my next question. Who becomes responsible for maintaining the property if there's stuff on the property? This is common property, and the fort's responsible for maintaining it. So what happens if something is damaged in the process of mowing, weed eating? Then who becomes responsible?
The residents, I believe, on their petition for it, took responsibility for seeing to it that items were removed to accommodate mowing, or they would do the mowing themselves.
Exactly. That was all discussed in our meeting.
Well, yes, sir, I watched the video, but this resolution doesn't cover any of that. And if it becomes a situation to where that property, that private property, is an eyesore due to whatever, inclement weather, whatever, deterioration from the sun, is the fort given the ability to remove that? Or does it have to be the unit that does that? These are just questions I have.
It's not so much of what y'all asked for, it's what you're gonna do with the next person that wants to do the same thing, was my whole question.
Yeah, this isn't an attack on anybody. This is, the
I know what
document.
y'all asked for, and it was pretty specific, but then somebody else wants to come down and say, oh, 2 people wanna put a picnic table right on the creek, right out somebody's front door. How is that gonna be handled or something? And those were just questions I had, not specifically what we were talking about, what this resolution does, but then now we're opening up a whole new ballgame of other questions, and how are we gonna handle it?
What I think would be beneficial is a written agreement that outlines all of those parameters, because in here it doesn't say you're going to mow unit 1. It doesn't say you're doing that. It doesn't say if something's damaged, what happens. I mean, granted, I understand this is a resolution, but I'm saying like an attachment of some sort, because what I can easily see happening is something is damaged, and then the fort is put to blame for it, and then next thing we know, we're being asked to pay for replacement items.
Well, maybe we can make their specific request and attachment and addendum to the resolution, make it incorporate as part of the resolution. And if you submit your other questions that you feel should be answered by the resolution, we could put those in too. And then vote on either accepting or denying it. Would that be satisfactory to you, Maria?
Well, I'd rather vote on it all at one time, honestly, but that would mean we need to draft that agreement up, but what was that, sir? I mean, it just needs to be voted on at one time. We have a habit of voting on stuff with a contingency, and the contingency is never followed up on. So if possible, I'd like to give us time to do that, and
Well,
we just need to watch it. We need to be looking out for the best interest of our association with regard to the common property portion of that. And if we're starting this and saying we're going to grant a variance, but then there's no supporting documentation to say what those parameters are going to be, then I don't think we're doing right by our membership in that. So.
I do have some guidelines from the declaration, because the declarations say that the intended use of the common property is for the members to use for recreational purposes.
Exactly.
And I guess that sitting out there relaxing can be called one type of recreation.
well, according to the variance resolution that we're granting, it says to allow placement of removable personal property, namely tables, chairs, benches, canopies, barbecue pits, coolers, fire rings, and decorative items for the use of Unit 1 and or Fort Clark members. There are specific items that have been listed here.
I understand that.
But there's not specific places listed here either, though.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, common property.
Yeah, pictures were there.
I don't mean to be smile.
No, but again, somebody wants two people down Unit 1, want to come up there, and they got a spot picked out, and it's right out somebody's front door. Does that person not have the right to complain?
Do we have common property aboard joining somebody's front door?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Okay.
do. But then again, if or say somebody wants to put something out there and she puts this great big nice pretty picnic table out there and somebody comes down there and deliberately tears it up.
Or removes it.
Or removes it, or it gets pushed over, who's responsible? Is the fort gonna be responsible for their property? I don't know.
No.
We just need to really think about what you're doing, because you're opening up, we got 1,600 acres of common property.
Well, that's why I suggested having.
I don't have a
an
problem
attachment
with
to
what I
this,
think y'all
setting
want,
those
y'all already
guidelines.
determined what you wanted. But if no more than is in here, that just as two people wanna go put something on common property and they don't have to okay it with you, I don't think that's right. Or with the fort or the board.
They
That's
have,
what we're talking about specifically right now, I know what we're talking about.
same thing would apply to anybody else who wants to do it. They'd have to come and apply for a variance.
That's what I would like to see.
Well, for this one specifically, I think if we establish the parameters that this is an agreement, because this is an agreement that we're letting Unit 1 do this, but there's no parameters here that protect the fort or protect the Unit 1 residents. There's none. That nothing here says in the event of something being destroyed, the fort's liable or Unit 1's liable, or there's nothing in here that says that. There's also nothing in here that says if another resident, like you brought up, Ms. Isaacs, if another resident in Unit 1 decides that now they want to do something, well, there's approval here that they could do it, but they've gone off and done their own thing. So how do
Well, we
deal
can
with that?
address that very easily simply by putting a statement in there that the association is not liable or responsible for any of the property placed upon the common property.
Exactly.
Right, but it doesn't take care of who's responsible for mowing it, who's responsible for ensuring that it's kept, because the responsibility lies on the fort. But if we're telling Unit 1 that they can put their stuff there, and I don't know if we have a maintenance schedule where they say this is the day I'm at Unit 1 to mow. In my experience, very limited, there is no schedule. So how
We
would
can
that?
add another second one to easily take care of that too. And that is simply that the residents of Unit 1 shall cooperate with the maintenance department in maintaining all the areas, and if necessary, do it themselves.
that was agreed on already.
That takes care of the maintaining of the property and any liability issues you're concerned with.
Yes, it was. We agreed to that.
Well, this is what they want to approve right now. They want to understand.
Well, we can approve it with the addition of those two clauses.
No, I'm good.
I'd be more comfortable if we had an attachment that has all of the parameters discussed. Because I know there was a lot more discussion in the meeting that was agreed to that's not reflected here. And truth be told, if it's not black and white, you can't hold someone accountable to it. That's the way
Can
it
we
goes.
get this printed up and sent out as an email vote and then email vote as soon as it's.
We can't count on an email vote because of the sporadic responses that we get when we have tried it. We introduced a motion to allow us to do email votes, and it was voted down and argued against. So yeah, you have to get all 5 directors agreeing to the vote to do an email vote. And if you take care of the liability and the maintenance here, I don't see what more you want. You already have the specific items that can be placed. You're taking care of liability and responsibility issues, and you're taking care of the maintenance issues. So what else is there? Does someone want to call for a vote with the, no, first I'd ask, would you take as a friendly amendment to your motion, John, that we add a clause to this resolution?
Yes.
For non-liability and responsibility of the fort for any of the materials or property placed there by the residents, by the members, I should say, and that the members shall cooperate with the maintenance department in maintaining the common ground, and if necessary, accomplish that themselves.
Yes. I agree to that.
Bill, I think you
Yes, I'll second
I
that.
think
Yes.
that was his motion, I seconded it.
Okay.
And I understand that where the questions are coming from, and they're good questions, but I think that we, can't overthink some of this stuff. I think they already agreed to take care of the mowing or move the stuff out of the way of the mowing. And we did not talk about if something got destroyed, whose responsibility is that. So I think that's a good thing to put that in there.
All right. The other thing to keep in mind, if some kind of an unforeseen problem happens that has to be dealt with, the board can always come back and amend any resolution too. They have the power to do that.
Okay.
Well, that's in there.
But this is all removable. This is all, everything that they're talking about is removable.
All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
I'd like to know what you're going to put on there as a resolution though. Non-reliability, and then members work with the maintenance on the mowing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, all those opposed? Okay. Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
And will we put out some type of a statement that if everybody else wants to, they have to get approval?
Well, I think that stands without making a statement, but
I can just see this opening up a big can of worms if you don't put statements out there.
all right, next we have the facility use agreement for the FCSA Old Calvary Stables. And who would like to take the lead on this one?
Make a motion to approve the proposed Fort Clark Springs Association Old Calvary Stable facility use agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions, discussions?
Well, surprise, I have some. So I may as well provide comic relief while I get ready to ask my questions. So my first question is, with this facility use agreement, it would be between an individual and the fort, not the horse club and the fort, right?
Correct.
So what happens to the horse club, and how is it going to interact with the equine committee moving forward?
Well, if you want me to answer that question.
anyone.
I'll start by saying thank you to not only the Equine Committee, but also to the Horse Club, and in particular, Ms. Van Ort, the Horse Club president. She and I very recently met on this document, and we tweaked it some more, and we talked about the many ways in which, as we look ahead, that the Fort administration will be cooperating with the Horse Club cooperating with the administration. The Equine Committee will continue to do the bidding, I suppose, of the board, because it is a board committee. And I think what was born out of that was a cooperative relationship between the Horse Club and the administration. I look forward to working with them. I think we're going to have some very positive things happen there.
So then there still will be a horse club and an equine committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's really up to the horse club. Clubs are not committees, so the board doesn't decide whether or not there's going to be a club. That's their business.
Okay.
Just like the art club, the gun club, all those.
Okay. In paragraph 3, if I'm reading this correctly, does this mean that the fort is going to be paying the utilities for the horse stables now?
Yes.
Okay. What are the current rates in line 4? What are the current rates that they're paying right this second?
Ms. Isaacs and I sat down, and we, the two of us, met on this document also. We costed things out, and we went item by item, but I don't have those in front of me.
Okay.
But we did take those into consideration.
$35 per stall.
Yes, we calculated the $35 per stall, or per horse, we should say. $35 per horse was our best estimate of what it would take to cover all of the expenses.
Okay.
And more.
Okay. In number 5, it talks about the immediate removal from the stable premises, but at that point in time, is the deposit refundable if they're in that instance?
Yes, I would think so. Mhm.
So they're kicked out because, let's see, in the event an animal poses immediate danger or threat to itself or to others, and they're kicked out, they still get their deposit back.
If the
Well,
stall is in good
The
condition.
the deposit is for the condition of the stall,
Okay.
to preserve the condition of the stall.
There's nothing that says that in there, so
Well,
just throwing that out there.
That's what the deposit is for. Once the stalls are redone, the photos will be taken of each stall as it is completed. And then if your horse tears up something, that's where that $100 will either keep it or refund it.
Well, I'm just asking because in any kind of rental agreement,
Yes.
if you destroy something and you're kicked out, it does talk about your deposit. So I'm just asking, maybe that might need to be included in
Talked
there.
about it, just want you to know that it had been thoroughly discussed.
Oh, I don't doubt it,
I
but
don't think there's an agreement that has been discussed more than this one.
yeah. In number 6, it says that a member in good standing is able to use the facilities. Does that include FRM?
Yes.
Yes, at
Okay.
this point in time, yes.
Okay. Let's see. And then do we already have images of the stalls in their current situation, status?
I believe only the 2 that have been repaired.
Right.
Kim, have y'all taken photos of any stalls except the 2 that have been repaired? No, ma'am. But have the 2 that have been repaired been taken photos?
Well, I've actually taken photos of everything, but
Oh, okay.
when we get into forming the agreements with the individual horse owners, we'll take a look at those again and yeah.
So then they'll just be held accountable for, like, the people that are there now, they'll be held accountable for their stall the way it is currently
Yes.
when they leave.
And the
right?
idea is that over the course of time, we're going to restore each of the stalls to the early 20th century period. That's our goal, and certainly when that happens, we're definitely going to have very accurate documentation and photograph, so that each boarder, each horse owner would be responsible. There's some that are in a condition right now that are quite bad, but yeah, all of that's going to be taken care of.
Okay, I'm just asking. On number 13, there was additional verbiage in there that talked about manure and.
Some of the tweaking that we did.
So why was that removed? Is the fort going to be disposing manure, or is that still the responsibility of the horse boarder?
Well, not only do we have this agreement, but we're going to also, in cooperation with the equine committee and also the horse club, there's going to be a set of rules which everyone will be expected to abide by. And we thought that that might be more of a rule than it would be a clause in an agreement.
Okay. And then with regard to maintenance, is in those rules, are you going to identify the level of maintenance that the fort's going to be doing? What I did was I read that 15 item list that you gave to us at the last meeting, Ms. Van Oort, and there was a lot of stuff in there about specific maintenance that they do currently, and like one of them fly control measures. And so my concern is that we've already got maintenance overextended with the amount of things that they're responsible for. So is there going to be something that spells it out? This is what the horse boarder is responsible for, and this is what our maintenance is going to do, and what's done on demand versus what's done on a schedule? I'm just asking.
I'm not sure that it's going to be that detailed. The horse club wants a facility that is well run, well maintained, and they're ready to step up to do some of these things as well. Much like the pilots take care of the airport, they also understand the need to take care of the horse stables. So,
okay. Well, it was a very lengthy list, so that's why I was asking. And then, is there going to be an accompanying form that the horse and the boarder are going to have to provide all the horse information, or is this just it that they have to sign?
There are already some documents that have to be presented by each of the boarders, and whatever other. I mean, I don't think it'll be anything different from what they already do.
We already have to have a Coggins every year.
Right.
Anybody coming out of state has to have health papers.
You have to present insurance.
And then we have to have $100,000 worth of insurance.
And then there's contact information and the like. So.
And then we have our contact information, and I believe there's also a list of which stall each person, the contact number for. If something happens and somebody goes down there, oh, this horse right here is in stall numbers, that's Isaac, or that's O'Brien or something, but there is a list.
So there's already a form in place where people fill that out, and you have that on file, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then I don't know if it would be in here, but is there going to be a transient horse or overnighter agreement?
Yes, there already is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a fee, I'm not sure what that fee even is at this point in time.
And then with this agreement, if the boarder wants to, does this agreement allow for things like horse riding lessons, doing camps, stuff, etc., things like that to enhance?
This agreement does not address those issues, but the horse club is going to be involved, and the equine committee be involved in the decisions made to allow those sorts of things if that was to occur, if that was to pop up.
Okay, those are all my questions.
That's the good thing about this, is that we've agreed to very closely cooperate and communicate, and I think with that we'll have the answers to all of those questions.
Okay.
Call for a vote.
All right, we are ready to vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
It's a red letter day.
All right, now I'm going to move to old unfinished business, and that's to consider approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 19th, 2018. As there were one small correction on them. The correction was under the action item, which says consider approval to table a motion that a proposed amendment to declaration requiring the architectural committee to meet twice monthly or more often at the discretion of the committee be sent to the FCA membership to approve. Sullivan moved to table the matter until the January meeting. Perkins seconded. The motion passed, 3 in favor, 1 against. The original minutes, there would have been a discussion prior to that motion about having the attorneys review it, and the way the original minutes stated was that this motion was subject to those reviews by the attorney, and they were not. I went back and reviewed, and last month I suggested anyone have questions, go review the video. My motion was simply to table the matter to the January meeting, which we did. And then at January meeting, we made some adjustments and passed it. So that's the only correction that I'm aware of. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion, questions?
I just have a comment because I did go watch the video again as well. And there's about 2 or 3 different motions at the same time. And the one that ultimately did wind up getting voted on was the one that Mr. Sullivan is saying, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? I call for a vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Now, we move to new business. I think we could start with the adding a resolution. I believe you want that the ballots, that multiple ballots in one envelope be accepted by the auditor as long as they meet all other requirements. Something
Yes.
along those lines.
I actually did draft a proposed motion, so.
Oh, good.
So the proposed motion is, in light of guidelines for members with multiple lots not being put on election ballots and no reference of the election procedures outlined in the bylaws, the Board of Directors will allow the independent auditor to accept multiple ballots sent in one envelope as long as it does not exceed the members' allotted ballots. In accordance with the bylaws, if a member has sent more than their allotted ballots, all will be deemed invalid.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Maria Perkins, a second by John Hope. All those in favor? Unanimously?
Can I have that?
Did that,
Because I'm going to send
did
this
that
to
say
the
anything
auditor.
about a certified envelope?
It just said one envelope.
One envelope.
But we can add,
But it
we can
has
add
to be-
official.
Yeah, it does have to
be-
be the
Just put
official.
one
It has to be
official.
the official envelope.
They,
Can you,
Sorry, I just didn't hear you say that.
will you,
I will amend that motion to include that the envelope has to be official.
envelope.
all right. We'll call for a vote on the amendment.
Somebody made me.
John, Deborah, we
Yeah.
want to vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
John did.
All right.
I'll send this to the auditor.
Okay, next I need to report on an email vote taken by the Board of Directors. And on January 30th and the 31st, there was an email vote of approving 2 things. One, to allow use of the Pulse Theater for the candidates forum at no charge. That was approved. Secondly, was to authorize the executive officer to put out a notice of the forum on the HQ dispatch. That was also approved. The we had an emergency meeting that was on January 23rd. It was called. And first of all, I want to thank all the directors for basically no notice, or I think it was at most one day, they all attended. And at that meeting, it was prompted by the resignation of Andrew Smolin, our comptroller. And as we're approaching time for an audit, it became very critical. At that emergency meeting, his resignation was announced, and we voted in favor of authorizing the re-engagement of Randy Holloway from the Susan Newcomb accounting firm that stepped in and take over in the interim until we found a replacement. We also authorized the executive officer to seek a replacement for Mr. Smolin. And we also authorized a change in the name of the contact person with Harbor Touch, the POS system company that has not been very easy to deal with. And Mr. Smolin was the contact person, so we changed that to Richard Lawrence, our executive officer. I think that concluded everything that we did at that meeting, so you're aware of that. I also would add that Richard immediately took steps to change passwords and access codes to all of our records and everything that would have involved Mr. Smolin. Not that there was any thought that there would be any nefarious wrongdoing, but just as a solid, sound business practice. The next thing under new business is to set a date for a workshop to continue work and maybe hopefully finish up the review of the 3 ad hoc committees, the RV park, the renters committee, and the rules and regulation committees. Does the board feel that maybe we should wait till March?
Well, the problem is, for me, we have spring break, and we're gone all spring break, and that takes about 10 days of the month out. So I'm looking at my calendar right now, and
When is that?
Spring break is the 9th, the week of the 10th of March.
Well, maybe we can do it the first week of March. I know it's difficult because we have the annual meeting, we have the regular board meeting. We just got through the candidates forum and this meeting, an emergency meeting, and a workshop meeting.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Sullivan. Could everyone look at your cell phone and just turn it off or put it on silent? Please, since I made that announcement, 3 phones have gone off. It's so rude, and I'm very sorry to say it again, but it is insanely rude. I'm sorry.
You're forgiven. Does anybody have any suggestions? Or do you want to just table the setting a date for it and maybe wait for your new board?
No, I think we need to wait. It's too long.
Well, it's just such a busy, like the spring is just insane. I'm going to Corpus for an extended amount of time too, and I'm doing it around the board meetings. So, I mean, I could do the 18th or the 19th, which is leading up to the board meeting, but
March 19th?
18th or 19th.
What's the dates?
20th is
The 20th is the board meeting,
20th is the
so the
board.
18th
So
is
the 18th and
a Monday.
19th are Monday
I've got
and
the Lost
Tuesday.
Morris tournament that whole week trying to do all the paperwork. I'm just,
the first week of March.
Well, I'm spinning up to go to Hawaii Hawaii's a lot funner. Just throw that out there.
The first week of March is not spring break.
No, I understand that, but I have, my daughter is in school, my sister just had a kid that I'm gonna go see, and, so, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that people don't care about, but,
Well, I can't do March 1st or March 4th. After that, pick some. I'm available.
I don't have.
when was your tournament, Debbie?
That Lost Morris tournament's 15th, 16th, 17th, but I've got to get all the ads to the printer. I got to do all those. I've got all the paperwork comes into me. All the entries, putting everything together in spreadsheets.
How about March 4th?
He said March 4th.
He couldn't do
Oh,
March the
You
4th.
can't do the 4th. How about March 5th?
The only thing is ARC meets in here. We could meet someplace else.
Yeah, on
Or
Tuesday.
can't we boot them
Yeah,
out?
we could meet in the
Or-
lounge.
Or can we do it after their meeting? Is their meeting long?
You never know.
Is there room where the committee?
We could do it the afternoon of March 5th.
That's what I'm saying, like after their meeting.
The adult center.
How about 1 o'clock on March 5th?
Works for me.
Okay.
I can't do 1 o'clock. I can do 3 o'clock, but I can't do 1 o'clock.
3 o'clock works for me.
Bill,
That's fine.
Deborah?
I've just got to look at a different
And
time.
this is a workshop.
We only meet till about 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, so
I can do 10:30 on Tuesday morning.
10:30?
I can do 10:30.
Deborah?
I'll try. I don't know.
Mr. Herman?
Yeah, that's fine. What was the
10,
date?
10:30?
10:30,
March
March
5th.
5th.
March the 5th at 10:30. Let's try it. If it don't work, it don't work.
Okay, and this is a workshop. It's not
If I need to go to
gonna,
Washington, I'll excuse
Well, if I get a
myself.
call for work, I'll.
no, there's not gonna be any action taken or votes done. It's simply a workshop to put it together and get it ready to present to the board for approval. Okay, the next item is a set date for a workshop on the Unit 1 needs and the 10-year plan. I think the idea is their long list of concerns that we want to roll that in and wrap it in with the 10-year plan, which we also have to prioritize that plan, and that'll be a job in itself. Do you want to take on trying to set a date for that now, or do you want to wait?
I want to wait.
I think that
Wait
should
till after
be,
the election.
yeah, I think that should also be after the election.
Okay, that's delayed. All right, we've got, now have the 15-minute form, and for members, I would please ask that you be pithy, concise, to the point, no bloviating, and
I'd like to ask one question to Mr. Lawrence. Where are we sitting with our audit? Are we gonna have our audit done for the annual meeting?
We are doing our best to get prepared for that audit,
Do you
and
feel
hopefully,
comfortable that, yes?
no, I don't feel comfortable. I just don't know,
Okay,
you know,
thank you.
I mean, this,
I think I'm first on the list.
sure. Come on up.
Is there a list?
That's Randy, good timing.
I had a member come to me, hi, I'm Linda O'Brien. I had a member come to me this morning asking a question about the proposed amendment to the Declaration of Protective Restrictions. They don't know what you're saying in this. They don't know whether to vote yes or no. Is it possible that someone, the Architectural Committee, Mr. Lawrence, can just clarify that? This will be broadcast to the membership. They
I
don't.
can clarify it for you.
Okay, thank you.
That amendment to the declaration simply, the present declaration states that the architectural committee must meet weekly, once a week. Now, if they have no permit requests, there's no reason for them to meet, and they oftentimes then do not meet. So we want to remove that requirement. Also, on getting volunteers for the architectural committee, it's very hard because that's a weekly commitment, the way it's now written. Making the commitment at the discretion of the architectural committee and as it is necessary for them to meet will reduce that requirement, that commitment, and hopefully we'll be able to get more volunteers for the committee. Does that clarify it? Just simply removes the requirement they meet every week, that they can meet at their discretion or as necessary.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, anyone?
You have a list.
Dan, I've heard the 10-year plan referenced several times now. Can you kind of...
The mic's It's not on here. You go through these.
Hope I don't talk too loud in the mic.
Excuse me, we have a sign-up list we need to go through first.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that we had this.
Okay.
We'll get you back, Mr. Fish.
Thank you.
Katie Brown is...
I had actually debated whether to come up and say anything at all, but this is really bothering me, and perhaps it's bothering other people as much as it's bothering me. I'd like to address the postcard that came out. Not everybody got one, I know, I realize that. I've heard people say they know exactly who sent it. I would like to say that I'm really disappointed that someone felt so compelled to have to put something out like that to trash the candidates who are running for our board. To be a director on the board is certainly a thankless job. I really do appreciate each and every one of these people who puts themselves up here to be continually slammed in secret sites on Facebook behind their doors where they can feel compelled to say whatever they like without having to face anybody and say it to their face, or to ask questions and inquire before they're throwing the blame around. I have lived on the fort. I'm a fairly new member. I've only been here about 20 years. But, and there are people who have been here a lot longer than that. But I have seen this happen before, this very same type of thing. And it has torn apart our neighborhoods. It has pitted neighbor against neighbor. It has ruined friendships that today have never been mended. And we live in a small community, and I think it's very important that we all hang together and work for the betterment of this fort, put our differences aside, discuss them with each other, express the right to be different from someone else and to have different ideas, and to be able to talk it out and stop throwing the blame. It takes more than one person on this board. No one person can solve all of our problems. And some problems may never be solved for one way or the other. But the ability to come together and to compromise is a wonderful thing, and I'd like to compliment the board today because it seemed like everybody was on board with everything, and there wasn't a lot of back and forth against each other or opposites or pitting the women against the men or whatever. So I would like to compliment the board that we have. You put in a lot of work on this, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Kathy Warren.
I don't have too much, Dan. But it might not be a real quickie this time. I am so glad that it was explained to me and other people that we can take our ballots and put them in one envelope. You know, it saves us a whole $1 or 50 cents for an envelope. Years ago when we did the ballots, we stuffed them. We were able to take, if you had 3 memberships, we could put them in one envelope. And that way it saved money for the fort setting it. I was just curious why that wasn't done this year again.
Because the bylaws say one vote, one ballot, one envelope.
Oh, going out to each member. Oh, okay. That's too bad, because that would have saved the fort a lot of money.
And the logistics.
Yeah, oh, okay, that was it.
We check off the list every ballot.
Right.
So if there's several ballots in one envelope, it makes it more difficult to check them off. If one ballot, one envelope, we can check off the name.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
That's one of the reasons.
Okay, because I think years ago when we did it, we just, because they had 3 memberships, we just stuck them in one envelope.
Plus, in order to get the bulk rate or the pre-sorted rate,
Oh, okay.
they all have to weigh the same.
Oh, see, now I'm learning. Okay.
Another point, though, was even when the election committee was going through to validate that each ballot was in every envelope, there were some that were erroneously 2 put into one envelope, and so they really did do a very thorough job to make sure it was abiding by the bylaws, which one envelope.
No, we did it years ago, and it was a pain in the butt to do all that stuff and everything with the names and the addresses and all that stuff. Anyhow, I am the representative for the RV Winter Texans, and I'd like to make a public service announcement. This is hot off the press from John. John happened to go, he went to the rodeo, so he got his day off.
John who?
John Bridgers.
Okay.
Okay, he knows how to have a really good time. Attention chili cookers, we need more of you to participate in the chili cook-off to be held February 25th, noon at the RV park. There's going to be cash prizes awarded by the judges and also People's Choice Award. If you don't want to make chili, he would love to have more entrants because you could win a really good prize. If you want to eat chili, all you can eat chili and cornbread. Tickets are only $5. Last year they were $6, and he decided to make it easier to give, instead of going $10, you got to give $4 back. So you got a $5 bill, and there you can go. And everybody is welcome. If you want to enter, you can either call John or get hold of me, and I'll get hold of John when he's done having fun in San Antonio at the rodeo. Please call one of us by Sunday, February 24th. You only need to make 1 little gallon of chili. That's all you need to do. You don't have to provide any condiments if you want, but if you can, that's fine. Chili entrance should be there by 11:45. Eaters can start eating at noon, high or low. If you haven't been to one of these, you're really missing out because it's a wonderful afternoon. And for those of you that have been there, you know how much fun it is. Anyhow, that's all from John. Thank you.
What was the day?
Monday the 25th.
At what time again? Noon, right?
High noon. Start eating.
Thank you.
And if people want to make cornbread, can they bring
You
cornbread?
can, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. There's some really good cornbread. Yeah, you can bring it out in the. You should go. It's really fun.
I'm going to.
Good.
Should we put that in a dispatch?
I'll go. But I have a really good cornbread recipe.
Oh, you're going to have some really good competition. Because there's.
Bring it.
Okay, $2 to enter the cornbread contest.
Is there a cornbread competition?
No, I'll make one.
You can tell who won by how much is gone. But anyhow, yeah, it's just come, please, come. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sandra Hagan.
I can write Sandy from now till the end of time, and you'll still call me
No,
Sandy.
I'm sorry, I misread. Sandy Hagan.
It's okay, I'm Sandra.
That's with double E.
Yeah. I wanted to give some credit. The Ladies Golf League voted to do 2 projects. The first project that we did was to thoroughly clean the club room at the pro shop and got all the junk out of there, mopped the floors, cleaned the windows, did all that stuff so that it's suitable now when we have major tournaments and doesn't look like a storage shed. The second project that we did was to, first of all, we wanted to clean the on-course bathrooms. And if any of you are golfers, I don't think they've been thoroughly cleaned in 30 years. And all of us ladies decided that we were much too old to get down on our knees and scrub. So we hired very nice lady who's a housekeeper here and also does her own housekeeping work. And I'm not going to give her name because I don't have permission to clean both the men's and women's on-course restrooms. And she completed that on Monday. And that's when we found out that some of the dirt on the tile floors was not dirt at all, but missing grout. It just looked like dirt. Anyway, she did a fantastic job. Both restrooms are clean. Our next step is we are going to paint the vanities, and we're going to paint the walls and the ceilings and all the other wood in there when the weather's warm enough to paint, so that we will have much nicer restrooms for our golfers. And then at that point, when that is done, I'm going to ask Mr. Lawrence and the board to make sure that our maintenance staff actually keeps up the restrooms and make sure that they're cleaned more than once a week and kept clean and supplied. But I wanted to give the Ladies Golf League a shout out because it's been a long time coming, and I'm very proud of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Without stakes for our signs.
Oh, they're in the pro shop. Gave them to Aaron.
Aaron, somebody up there knows where they're at.
Yeah.
And is the Ladies League going to do the cancer poll at the Lost Boys?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. And
okay, I just haven't been
and
told.
if the golf committee would and the Lost Morris committee would give us a list of other volunteer jobs that you need, we may have other ladies that would like to also participate.
And thank you for your donation to the Lost Morris tournament.
The ladies also donated $250 to the as a sponsorship for the Lost Morris tournament.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, Mary Partlow.
All my questions have been answered.
Next, Mr. Charles Fish.
Thank you. I've heard reference now a couple of times to a 10-year plan. Can you give me whatever definition you have of what's going on there with that?
First of all, if we were to give you the details of it, it would take the rest of the day. It's pretty extensive. What it is a list of all the issues, items that need attention that we're aware of, I should say, that management is aware of, and estimated costs for doing each one. It needs to be prioritized, but sometimes just immediate needs require, as an example, with the motels, the underneath in the crawl space are actually almost basement area. The plumbing was leaking water. It was like a rainforest under there. And hot water in some rooms took forever because it was coming from a long distance. All that was taken care of right away. That was the first thing. So we're going to prioritize, but the general consensus so far is that we want to start with revenue producers. The motels, the new doors, renovation of the rooms and televisions and beds. It's a lot of money, and so most of these projects go over several years. So you do part of it this year and then part of it next year, but you only have so much money to work with each year.
Right.
And I would explain that the funds for that are restricted funds, originally called an impound fund, was set aside basically mostly for creating new subdivisions, which we cannot do at this point because of our requirement for common ground acreage. And we don't have the acreage to do it, so that money was just sitting there not used. So the declarations, when we were involved with rewriting the declarations, were changed to allow us to use that money for those type of improvements and upgrades. Part of that money, about a little over $140,000, is committed as security for landfill environmental letters of credit, And some of it has to be used for certain mud taxes that are paid out of it each year. And of course, some of it is used for the Historical Preservation Society. But if we work with, there's approximately a net gain on that every year of about $47,000. So if we use that $47,000 and a little bit from the reserve we have there, then we can do so much each year, and hopefully after 10 years have this place back up. But you've had 25, 30 years of decline and decay. I don't know if Mr. Lawrence wants to add anything to that.
But we just tabled the 10-year plan for the new board. So when the new board comes in, we want to look at what we think the board thinks is the most important things to go with. The 10-year plan that we had was from the previous board. And I'm not sure, signage was done, some computer chairs were bought, the plumbing he was talking about was done. Several things have been done out of that with that previous thing, but we haven't had a chance to look at the 10-year plan. This board hasn't. So we were going to make a workshop for it, and we just voted just a while ago to wait till the new board was elected to look at that new 10-year plan.
And one of the things that can move a little more quickly when we get into less costly items, but the motel, I mean, that's big bucks to do all the things that need to be done there and bring that up into the 21st century. So getting that completed first is a little slow. I think it'll move a little faster once we're done with that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your
Appreciate it.
With that, we have no one else on the list, but I'll entertain anybody have anything. I see a hand up in the back.
My name's Pat Seitz. I don't usually get to come to your meetings, but I was able to come today. So I'm not real familiar with how the meeting goes or what's said or what's not said and stuff. But I do want to comment on the green areas. And the green area is abused on Fort Clark. Very much so. Now, I'm not saying that Unit 1 is going to abuse the green area. I'm not saying that. But I am saying there are people that are tearing up the green area. And that it's not going to get, if they park their truck on the green area, it's not going to get mowed. You know, the green area is not going to get mowed. It's also going to get torn up because they're driving it when it's wet and assorted other things. So I think it would behoove whoever wants to say that the green area can be used for these kinds of things should drive around and just look at green areas. And I think you would have a real eye-opener as far as what some of the green areas are used for. And it's not always, and it hasn't been approved by the board.
Well, that's a violation and should be reported.
That's what I was going to say.
I think there are forms up from the front desk, I believe, to report any violations you're aware of.
Well, the problem is, you know, you all need to get out and look at them. You're the board.
Well, I think most of us probably are, but with that truck that's parked there maybe isn't parked there all the time, or maybe we don't go down that street when it is.
Well, there's golfers all the time going by the one place that the truck is parked on the green area. You know.
Well, that and making their private roads and stuff like that, that just irritates me to death to make your private roads, because you don't want to go down 2 blocks.
Yes, and I have the same problem with the fort driving on a green area to get on my street. They insist on they say, well, we can drive on that because it's a green area. Well, it makes the green area look pretty rotten. It's not a very big green area, okay, I'll give you that, but it is a green area.
Where do you live?
I live on the 10th fairway of the golf course.
Those houses right there behind number 10.
And I catch them driving through there all the, you know, I catch them and they say, oh, well, I don't have to, you know, my boss was in this vehicle with me and he didn't say anything about me not driving through the green area.
Well, what I would suggest, and I did actually answer this concern for another member, is that if you see something wrong, report it. And if it's a supervisor or someone that works for the fort, report it.
Well, I have reported it, but.
Well, if you're, and let me finish.
Okay.
And if you report this and you continue to see it and it's not getting dealt with, then elevate it. So, I mean, it is on us to go drive around, and I will. I'll go drive around with my kids, and we'll go check out the green areas. But me personally and this board, our job isn't to enforce those rules immediately. It's his job. We've given him that.
Right.
But if he's not given the opportunity to do it, then there's nothing that can be done until you've started that process. And I'm not telling you to go physically do it yourself, but if we don't know, if it's not reported and there's no documentation to show that it was reported, then we have no leg to stand on, because we can't enforce anything unless we have something physically in our hands saying there's a problem.
Right. I mean,
So
Possibly the problem, if your complaint is what I think it is, might be signage. Are you talking about the road that goes down into the deep gully there, along the edge of the fairway?
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking, it's not a very big area. It's where the end, there's 2 lots for sale.
Yeah.
And then there's this little green area, which the for sale sign used to be in the green area. And so it kind of kept them from coming through there, but now that, and it's not a big thing, but the point is, it's also down at the creek. You're not supposed to be driving down by the creek. You are, according to what I've been told about the CCNRs, you only can park your car or your truck up at the top there. You cannot go down and make a road through there to get to the creek because you're fishing or whatever. You have to walk down there physically and to fish. And that has been going on too.
So again, report it. And then if you're not getting what you want to hear from him, elevate it. I mean, you have my everybody should have my email address.
Oh, I have yours.
So, well, I mean, if you haven't caught on, I will read it and I will ask, and you know, but you have to go through that route first,
right?
And let him fix it.
Right.
All right, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry to point you out, but.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
There was one more hand up before you actually.
Hmm?
There was a hand up before you actually started. You just didn't see it.
All right.
That's up to you.
I'll make it brief.
Thank you.
I'm Constance Kilgore, and I'm brand new to the fort. And I have sat on an HOA board before, and I just want to express one concern. It concerns me that the board of directors is being responsible for architectural issues on this fort. I think I've always seen HOAs have an architectural committee that really addressed a lot of these questions and was separate from the board of directors, because y'all are doing a lot already. And being on an architectural committee is not a pleasant nor thankful kind of committee to be on, because they make very difficult decisions. There are some decisions that came up today that I thought an architectural committee would usually handle. And that's not what's gone on. I don't know the history of the board and the architectural committees and what all has gone on, but I would hope that we would consider reinstating more duties to the architectural committee. And that's all I have
Thank
to
you.
comment.
Let me just respond. I think the big one is that the board handles variances, that the architectural committee cannot grant variances. The Texas Property Code 209 specifically states that the architectural committees cannot grant variances unless specifically authorized by the governing documents of the HOA. So that's kind of an indication that they don't think they can just randomly be okayed to grant variances, and variances are very important. So rather than having those decisions made by a 5-member appointed board, they're made by a 5-member elected board. And that's why we chose not to authorize them. We didn't have to state in the section that creates the architectural committee, it was not necessary to state that they can't grant variances because they cannot by law unless we authorize it. So that's where that comes from.
Maybe something to consider.
Thank you.
And welcome. Yes.
All right, yes. Do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Yes, motion, seconds, all in favor, unanimously passes, and off we go.
Now, there is a plant down there. The sewer plant. Okay. All right.
All right, all directors are present. Our executive officer and executive secretary were reconvening the open regular session of the Board of Directors meeting. In the executive session, we received a presentation from Randy of MUD. Castillo, isn't it? Castillo of MUD for a request to have an easement over part of our property that's joining their MUD's retention ponds so they can process wastewater in accordance with the state of Texas requirements. Do we have a proposal to grant that?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we give MUD a 500-foot easement by 1,400 foot to extend the north fence past the.
There's 300 foot.
200 actually.
Yeah.
All right. It is not. The easement is for 500. Now, they own part of it. What part of it, we don't know. But the papers are going to be drawn up 500 foot by 1,400 foot. Now, we have to furnish property, maybe 200, maybe not. But the motion is that whatever it takes to extend that fence far enough out for them to come up with an 8-acre pond, we're going to give them an easement. We're not going to give them the property. We're just going to give them permission to move their fence out, the easement, 500 foot by 1,400 foot, and this is on the north side of the irrigation ponds, and then give them permission to irrigate the backside of that property, which will be to our benefit for feeding deer. And they won't have to put any more water into Lost Marsh Creek.
They're also going to build retention ponds on that easement?
Yes, 8-acre.
Okay. I think the final wording can be touched up by the executive officer.
We will have drawings as soon as but they have to submit this to the state, get it approved, and get an architect out there and get the exact measurements. and then we can dot the i's and cross the t's.
Okay, so
The board, I think, if I may suggest, the board, I think, would want today to grant an easement to Fort Clark Mud for Fort Clark common ground, an area equal, or an area approximately equal to 200 feet by 1,400 feet. And allow them to extend their fence to that distance, and to also irrigate the south side of the water treatment plant.
Right, you make that motion, John?
I did make that motion.
Okay.
I said 500 foot because we don't know for sure if it's 210, 300. But when we pass this motion, then we will receive a architect who will go out there, engineer, and come back with the exact figures for us. But it will not exceed 500 foot, and it may only be 160 to 200.
Okay. We could put that instead of 200 feet, we could say not to exceed.
That's right.
Subject to seeing the final survey and engineer drawings.
Exactly.
Is that acceptable to everybody? I mean, or you want?
Can you repeat the motion? Because it was a lot. So can someone repeat it?
I will repeat the motion. The north side of the plant that's being used right now for mud, they need to extend the fence on the north side approximately 200 foot.
Onto our property.
Onto our property. By 1,400 foot. It'll be a straight line fence. And we're just gonna give them an easement. We're gonna own the property. We will always own the property. And they could be, when we get the survey, it might not be exactly that, and it may be a few feet further. But they need permission to start today contacting the state and getting permission to get an engineer out there and survey.
I second the motion for us to grant a 200 foot by 1,400 foot easement on the north side of the area proposed to be the retention pond, and then to also allow mud to irrigate the south side of that retention pond.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? Unanimously passes. Okay, the other item that we discussed was the ultimate purchase of a special mowing machine for the golf course. The total cost on that machine is approximately $40,000. The golf committee is raising funds, working on raising funds, and has some funds available, and would like to know how much the association is willing to commit. So the motion would be the association is willing to commit up to $20,000 to cover the cost of purchasing this specialized mowing machine for the golf course. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's seconded by Maria Perkins. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. There's nothing else that I have from the executive session. Does anyone else have anything, any comments from this session? Hearing none, I've confirmed the next regular board meeting time and date will be Wednesday, March 20th at 9:30 a.m. in the boardroom of Fort Clark Springs Association. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 12:40 p.m.
Make that a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And we are done, folks.
So I will probably be back this afternoon or tomorrow morning
I'll talk to Philip.
Okay.
And we'll
to
figure that
deal
out.
with people asking for other ballots. But Mr. Lawrence is the only one that has that list. But in the meantime, are you able to print me that list that you sent to the IRA?
I'll just send it, yeah, I'll just send it to you. Do you want it printed?
Well, I want it printed.
Okay.
It's easier for me to see stuff
We can do that.
hard copy.
Yeah, that's not like that.
Because I think I'm gonna have 2 more requests for more ballots, so it'll be easier for me to annotate on that. Or if we even have the original,
Yes.
the original would be better. I can go grab it.
I can give you the original.
Yeah, I can go grab it.
Hold on.